Today, I'm joined by Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we're in Madison, Wisconsin. Vice President Kamala Harris will be holding a rally in Milwaukee today. She was in Eau Claire earlier this month. Why is her campaign focusing so much on Wisconsin?
Because Wisconsin matters. I was just there myself not very long ago and talking with people about how important Wisconsin is to the entire direction that our country takes. You may be the deciding state on whether or not Donald Trump and the Republicans take control of the federal government, and that means we would go from 30% of all women living in a world in which abortion is effectively banned to 100% of women, because their aim is to ban abortion nationwide. They're trying to keep that on the down low, but it's there, and they've actually said it out loud, written it down. Or Kamala Harris, who believes that in the freedom of people to make their own decisions and to make those decisions in private. If she gets the chance and Democrats are in charge in Washington, then we're going to protect access to abortion nationwide. And that means instead of 100% of women living in places that restrict access, we'll have 100% of women able to make their own decisions. So it's coming down to you, Wisconsin.
Obviously, Vice President Harris is at the top of the ticket. Governor Tim Walz is her running mate. What role do you think he'll play in appealing to swing voters in battleground states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania?
You know, I really think that seeing Tim Walz versus J.D. Vance is going to be really critical, because they are important in their own right, but it's also important about what they say about Donald Trump and about Kamala Harris. Think of it this way. Donald Trump said, I'm going to pick a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley to be the last person who whispers in my ear when I'm making decisions. Kamala Harris said, I'm going to pick a former public school teacher and football coach from Minnesota as the last person to whisper in my ear before I make important decisions. And I think that's a part of what people are going to see when those two men are out campaigning around the country. The J.D. Vance, who, yes, grew up in the Midwest, but made his way off to Yale and then out to Silicon Valley, where he fell in with the multi-billionaires. Or Walz, who, God bless it, stayed, taught school, was a football coach, and ultimately ran for Congress and has been doing a really good job as governor. So I think that's, again, really, really big contrast between the Democrats and the Republicans here.
There are obvious parallels between Vice President Harris's campaign this year and Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. Obviously, in 2016, Donald Trump won. How is this election different?
Well, I think partly that Democrats are not caught by surprise now. We've seen what happened. And Wisconsin, I have to say, you showed us much of the way with much of what went on in Wisconsin at the gubernatorial level in years past. And now Democrats are on top of this. We are in this fight all the way. We are committed. We are building coalition. And we are saying we want to make the contrast really, really clear. We don't want anybody to be surprised at the end of the day. That's why coming to Wisconsin is so important, to talk about this contrast, to talk about this contrast on abortion, to talk about this contrast on the economy, an economy that works for billionaires, Donald Trump, or an economy that works for working families, Kamala Harris. So I think the difference is now we're ready for this fight.
And then very quickly, before we let you go, Senator, if Kamala Harris wins, but Democrats don't retain control of the Senate, what does her presidency look like?
Boy, that's tough. Just think Supreme Court. Right off the top, it is statistically likely that the next president may have 2 Supreme Court nominees. If the Republicans are in control of the Senate, the nominees have to make it through the Senate. We've seen who the Republicans have insisted on for the Supreme Court. That's who gave us overturning Roe versus Wade, and they've indicated they're not stopping there. They are also the ones who have said that a president can be a king and be above the law. This is also a Supreme Court that has undercut unions enormously and undercut voting rights. So, yes, most important race is for the White House, but Democratic control of the Senate means we have a chance to get some balance back in to that Supreme Court.
Senator, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.